Can you see the slides?
Yes.
All right. Hare Krishna, all the devotees, welcome again. Chapter 14, Three Modes of Material Nature. Let us do the auspicious Mangala Charan. Om Jnana Timivandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Welcome again, chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Based on the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, who mercifully gave the world Bhagavad-gita as it is, coming in the disciplic succession of our Lord Brahma. Chapter 14, summary. All embodied souls are under the control of the three modes or qualities of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Lord Krishna explains what these modes are, how they act upon us, how one can transcend them, how one transcends them, and the symptoms of one who has attained the transcendental state. So it's a very wonderful chapter. Practically the whole chapter is focusing on the three modes of material nature. And we can appreciate the importance of that because the whole chapter is focused predominantly only on the three modes. And Lord Krishna will describe also what is the benefit of understanding the dynamics of these three modes. So the link from chapter 13 to chapter 14, in chapter 13 we covered verse 22, which we said was the Bija Vakya, the seed verse for this last 6 chapters of Bhagavad-gita. And Krishna describes Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhungte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Gunasangasya Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. So what gives rise to birth, what gives birth to different species of life, Janmasu? It is due to the association, guna sangasya, association with the three modes of material nature. And because of that, it gives rise to material bodies, which then gives rise to different good and evil suffering suffering or enjoyment that people get in this material world. And Krishna is relating here that the three modes of material nature, because we're enjoying the three modes, we come in contact with the three modes. We are getting the result, consequent result. And therefore, connecting from that verse, Krishna starts to present chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. So first, there's 5 sections, and we're gonna cover it in 4 divisions. So we're gonna cover the first section, where the Lord is going to introduce the subject. Then we're going to go into the middle 3 sections, and then finally conclude with the aspect of transcending the modes. So this is verses 1 to 4. And in this verse, in this verse, Krishna tells Arjuna, I'm going to tell you something even more wonderful. I'm going to tell you about the modes of material nature. And if we understand, Krishna says, this knowledge of the 3 modes of material nature, it'll help you to attain liberation and the transcendental nature, like me, Krishna says. So, and then the Lord also says, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. So Krishna introduces this wonderful topic with a motivation why we should be encouraged to at least understand the dynamics of these 3 modes, how the modes are influencing ourselves and how the modes are influencing others. Because when we understand the dynamics of these 3 modes, we can consciously decide which mode we want to associate. Remember, choice is always there. Your independent, minute independent nature to choose will always be there. Lord Krishna will never strive for that under any circumstance. He has never did that, and he will never do that in the future. We will always have a choice to either surrender to the Supreme Lord or to surrender to the material energy. Everyone has to surrender. We have 2 choices. There's no middle option. It's either you surrendering to Krishna or you surrendering to the material energy. And we get the corresponding benefit. Now, in 3 to 4, Lord Krishna describes how the soul comes into this material world and is placed within the modes of material nature. And I'm going to go over a small, I'm going to talk about creation 101. It's in great detail given in scripture, Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam, but I'm just going to give a synopsis of the creation, how creation is manifested. So in text 3, Lord Krishna talks about how the living entity comes in contact with material nature, and this material nature manifests and unmanifests repeatedly. So the living entities, they come into existence and they inverted commas unmanifest in a way that not that they lose their independence, not that they lose their individuality, and not that they lose their past karma. All that happens is they go into Mahavishnu's body again. So I'm going to explain that.
Sorry, Prabhu, you muted. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. So we know that we have the spiritual world and we have the material creation. It's described that the spiritual world is 3/4 of Krishna's creation. So if you had to take Krishna's creation, and let's see how many of you know in the chat, please type in the chat, how large is Krishna's creation? How large is Krishna's creation? I'm trying to get my chat box again. Okay. give me one sec. My chat box. Alt H, right, there we are. Thank you. Infinite, correct. So Krishna's creation is infinite, but in order to give us a, because of the material mind to appreciate and understand the material creation, the Vedas say that Krishna's creation, even though it's unlimited, you could divide it into a quarter and 3/4. So when we talk about dividing quarter, it means it's limited, but it's actually unlimited. So it's 3/4. It's 3/4 of unlimited and 1/4 of unlimited. And that's the 3/4 is the spiritual world, whereas 1/4, small part of the creation, Prabhupada says under 10%, very small percentage, right, is the material nature. Just like in a country, we have the country, and then we have small parts, which is the prison house. So the prison house is always small. Majority of the people are outside. That's the material that's spiritual world and material creation. Now the material creation, Mahavishnu is lying on the causal ocean, and when it's from Mahavishnu's pause, unlimited universes manifest and unmanifest. Just like from our pores, small bubbles of water come out, perspiration. Similarly, from Mahavishnu's pores, perspiration comes out. These are universes, and they're huge. The smallest universe is 4 billion miles in diameter, which we are currently in, by the way. And there's unlimited universes, bubbles that come out from Mahavishnu's body. When he breathes out, unlimited universes come out. When he breathes in, the universes go back into his body. He breathes out, they come out. He breathes in, and this is how creation, destruction happens on the level of Mahavishnu. Here's an interesting perspective. If you ever have a problem in life, a challenge, a problem, it's like insurmountable and thinking, I don't know what to do. Just meditate on Mahavishnu, how Mahavishnu is perceiving a problem. We may be thinking our problem is so big. For Mahavishnu, one exhalation and one inhalation is creation and destruction. It's one breath, it's 1 nisha, quarter of a second. Okay, blink of an eye. That's basically how Mahavishnu breathes, like how we breathe. So creation, destruction. That creation, destruction is 311 trillion, 40 billion years of our time, which means that even if you have a problem, and if that problem has to endure for 311 trillion, 40 billion years, and you complain for 311 trillion, 40 billion years, and you go to Mahavishnu and say, my Lord, I got a huge problem. For Mahavishnu, your problem is 1/4 of a second. It's practically insignificant. What to talk about for Krishna in the spiritual world, in Goloka Vrindavan, practically doesn't even exist. So it's interesting, from a higher dimension, you can perceive things totally different. And the Lord can, because the Lord is all powerful, the Lord can make different arrangements to assist us, even in our so-called minute problem. Now, when the Lord wants to create, the universes come out, but the universes are empty shells, and they need to be populated. We need to have a secondary creator that creates, and then everything manifests. So if you see on this side, you have the full universe with the different 14 planet systems, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, all the demigods, the living entities. So everything is within the universe. When the bubbles come out, within the bubble, the Lord expands as Garbhodak Sai Vishnu, and from his navel, lotus sprouts, Lord Brahma is there, and Lord Brahma creates, right? Lord Shiva, he's in charge of destroying the universe, and Mahavishnu is in charge of withdrawing practically all the universes. Now, when Mahavishnu is ready to create, the material energy, which is the Mahatattva, cannot act without the trigger, without the Icha Shakti, without the potency of Mahavishnu. So what happens is Mahavishnu glances at the material energy personified as Mother Durga, and then when she becomes active, then creation starts. And in that glance is all the living entities. So Mahavishnu, he breathes out, and when he breathes in, all the living entities also go in his body, and they stay in a state of slumber, inactive. And then next creation, they come out, and he impregnates them through his glance into Durga. That is why Durga is said to be the mother. And Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna says in text 4, let's repeat this verse. Sarva yonishu kaunteya. Mukund, you muted. Sarva yonishu kaunteya.
Sarva yonishu kunteya.
Murtaya sambhavantiya.
Murtaya sambhavantiya.
Tasam brahma mahadyonir.
Tasmam brahma mahadionir.
Aham bija pradapita.
Aham bija pradapita.
It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So Lord Krishna is making it clear here who is the father. In the material world, we may call each other, or my parents, this is my father, this is my mother. But actually your parents, they don't give birth to you. Your parents, they give birth to the material body. They are tailors of this body, not the spirit soul. The spirit soul cannot be created. The spirit soul is eternally part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is the father. And Krishna's expansion, which is Mahavishnu, assists impregnating all the living entities which are in his body. Remember, majority of the living entities are devotees in the spiritual world. The rebellious souls are in Mahavishnu's body. We're part of the rebellious group. So Mahavishnu glances, sends all the living entities into Durga, and therefore Durga is said to be the mother. Lord Shiva is also said to be the father. Reason being is because this glance, this halo, this glance, Mahavishnu and Krishna never come in contact with Durga. They use the agency of Lord Shiva, and this glance is called Shambhu. Shambhu impregnates Durga, and the material creation then is activated, and then everything starts to unfold, which is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. We're not going to go into that. We're not going to go into that detail, right? But this is in context with text 3, where Krishna has explained creation, and there are different levels of destruction. We mentioned when Brahma is taking rest in the evening, there is minor destruction. Half of the universe is destroyed. Brahma wakes up, he creates. And in this way, there's minor destruction and creation for the whole duration of Brahma. And then when the universe needs to be dissolved or destroyed, then Rudras from Lord Shiva, the 11 Rudras that manifested, they begin to dance and destroy the whole creation. And within that time span, as Mahavishnu is breathing, there is also destruction and creation. Okay. Bhagavatam gives a beautiful example of how the Lord creates the spider who spins his web from his mouth and then withdraws it. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates out of himself the whole universe and then winds it up into himself. Right? So just as a spider's web is coming from the saliva of the spider, and the spider can consume the saliva back, that's how a web is created. So the web is actually created, it's the energy of the spider. Similarly, creation is really the energy of the Lord. It's coming out from him, and he's unmanifesting it within himself. Then we come to the middle 3 sections. And here the Lord is going to describe how the soul is bound, the pure soul is bound, how to recognize the different modes, because the modes are also always competing. They want to become, each one wants to be predominant, and then the actions and death within modes. So how different categories of influences and impact of the modes on different aspects of nature. So in text 5, how the living entity gets conditioned. The Lord describes how the living entity gets conditioned. The living entity comes in contact with material nature and becomes conditioned by it. Despite his desire for independent enjoyment, his existence is subject to strict control by the modes of material nature. The modes of material nature, as explained in the 7th chapter, we heard how Lord Krishna describes that Devi as a gunamaya, mama maya duratyaya, this material energy of mind consisting of 3 modes. So Durga, who is the personification of material energy, she has these 3 modes that are energies that influences everyone and everything within this creation. And these modes are practically controlling every single aspect of this creation. The fault which causes the soul's conditioned state certainly rests in his own independent desire. We cannot blame Krishna any more than a criminal can blame a judge for his jail sentence. And that is very, very important to understand. The Lord creates this material creation for his pleasure as well as for our rectification. It is our fault, due to our desires to enjoy separately from the Lord, that we are placed in this material world. When we rectify our consciousness, we can come out. As long as we don't rectify our consciousness, we will be bound. Why the transcendental living entity suffers? The living entity, although transcendental, but has become conditioned by a material world and under the influence or under the spell of the material modes. Different bodies, different activities under the different modes is the cause of variety of happiness and distress. So yesterday we shared how the happiness and distress is caused by the 3 modes of material nature. The living entity, he's witnessing, he's aware, he's experiencing everything. He's the one that's conscious. He's perceiving. Just like if I see through my window and I see the garden outside. So my spectacles are not seeing because my spectacles are inanimate. They're not conscious. But my eyes are also not seeing. They're just instruments. My mind is also not seeing because my mind is also an instrument, a sense. But my mind is connected to my eyes. My eyes are using the lens and I'm seeing, I'm perceiving. So it is the soul that's using the agency of the mind through the eyes, through the spectacles, that is seeing, that is witnessing, that is the experiencer. And that experience is filtered. Just like if if my eyes become weaker, then my spectacles cannot focus properly. So therefore I cannot see. So that experience is now blurred. And the soul is experiencing that. So the soul is definitely there, he's experiencing, but he's not doing anything. He's just experiencing due to the conditioned nature. And according to the association with the modes, he will experience differently. Some beautiful verses, Srila Prabhupada, or statements from Srila Prabhupada's purports to really put the context of how important these modes are and how they influence. So I'll just read Srimad Bhagavatam 5.25.8. The contamination in the heart of a conditioned soul is like a huge accumulation of garbage created by the 3 modes of material nature. especially the mode of rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. This contamination becomes manifest in the form of lusty desires and greed for material possessions. Then, in the material world, the three modes are goodness, passion, and ignorance, and all of these are simply different gradations of contamination. So we should appreciate the influence of the modes is not normal. It's not healthy. It's not a healthy state for conditioned soul. We're supposed to be out of the influence. Just like someone who's intoxicated, he's under influence. They say don't drive under influence. Why? Because if you drive under influence, you will meet into an accident because you can't see, you can't judge. The liquor influences your consciousness, your awareness, your intelligence, and you can meet in an accident. So therefore they say don't drive under influence. Now you can't, if you meet in an accident, you can't say, well, I'm sorry, it's not me, it's the modes. It's the bottle, right? The liquor. No, you still the one that influenced yourself by drinking. So similarly, the modes are there and we are contaminated by it. It's our fault. As long as a living entity is conditioned by the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, the objects of his material form, taste, smell, sound, and touch will not help him understand spiritual knowledge and bliss. So we have to get knowledge that is transcendental. We have to get spiritual knowledge coming in the split succession, which is in Suddha-sattva. They're not influenced by the modes. What's interesting is there are also scriptures that are influenced by the three modes of material nature. Even though they're coming from Krishna, they are Puranas in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Why? To help those in those specific modes to elevate them to the next mode. So that is also an interesting subject where people don't appreciate why the Puranas are in different modes to help those. Because if somebody is in a mode of ignorance, he has a certain inclination, a certain nature, and you can't just get him to the mode of goodness. It's easier to transition him to the mode of passion and then transition to the mode of goodness and then beyond. A living entity is eternally a servant, and unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve the illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. We should ask the question, do I really want to perpetually wander in the cycle of birth and death again and again and again and again? It's really not a wonderful experience. So we have to make that committed internal intent and conviction to say, yes, I'm surrendering to Krishna now. I had enough. Consider if you join an academy. Doesn't matter what age you join an academy. As soon as you join a police academy, the first thing they're going to give you is an outfit. Even though you haven't qualified as a policeman, as soon as you join academy, they give you an outfit. Similarly, we were in the spiritual world, and when we came into contact with material nature, then we get a body, we get an outfit suitable for our experience in the material world. And that is the material body. That is the different species that become influenced by the modes of material nature. The three modes of material nature, which also called gunas, are what we also can define them to be pinches. Consider this nice plate of prasadam, variegated prasadam offered to the Supreme Lord, ready for us to relish. So we sit down and we start to honor this wonderful plate of prasadam. And we start to eat and honor. Just consider if we had three pinches, three personalities that don't like you, and each one wants to win the race. They want to win the They want to dominate themselves. And they are tasked that while you are honoring this prasad, they should pinch you all over your body. And there's no restrictions in terms of how hard they can pinch you. Their goal is to pinch you. So there you are sitting, you're ready to bite on a nice kachori. You're taking some sabji. You're taking some gulabs, taking some sweet rice. And all of a sudden you get these pinches. They're pinching you all over. Will you be able to relish this nice plate of prasadam? Let us know in the chat. Even though it's cooked so deliciously, with so much love, you're definitely not going to be able to relish this plate of prasad. It's going to be like sweet and ouch, sweet and bitter. And it's not nice. It's like taking sweet rice with some stones in it. And you take a spoon and you bite, grains of sand. It's not relishable. The three modes of material nature are worse than stones. So they're really pinching us. That's why we cannot really enjoy in this material world, because of these three modes. The workings of the three modes of material nature. Lord Krishna goes into different, from verse 6 to 8, 11 to 23, 14, 15, 16, 18, different verses. The Lord is now putting the impact, how the modes are impacting us. And we'll briefly go. So we know that the mode of goodness is the best, then passion, then ignorance. Now the binding forces of each of these modes. Under the mode of goodness, consider ropes. So there are different types of ropes. You could say 3 types of ropes. And each one has a certain characteristic, and they're binding you. So if I bind you with, let's say, cotton rope, and I bind you with certain fiber rope, and let's say wire, each one will bind, all 3 will bind you, but the binding impact will be different. Similarly, the modes, they impact us differently. So in the mode of goodness, we have the sense of happiness, satisfaction, knowledge, and superiority. In the mode of passion, we attach to fruitive activities. We like to work and get fruits. We attach to the fruits. And binds us to the ropes of desire and attachment. We get intense desire and attachment. And ignorance, we attach to madness, laziness, indolence, and sleep. The characteristic and manifestation. Goodness illuminates the gates of the body with knowledge. That means goodness is a very wonderful springboard to get knowledge. And frees one from sinful reactions. If you're in the mode of goodness, it helps one become free from from sinful reactions. Passion is intense endeavor, unlimited desires and longing, great attachment and fruitive activities. In passion, you get so many desires, they practically don't stop. You want this, 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 and you're never satisfied. In ignorance, it's delusion, illusion, darkness, madness, inertia. You're practically out of the count. Your destination at death, in mode of goodness, if you die in mode of goodness, you attain pure higher planets of the great sages. So you go high. And remember, high is not where we want to go. We want to get out. But at least it's better than the others. Attain earthly planet if you're in the earth planet, mode of passion, and birth in lower species if you die in ignorance. Then the results of action, if you act in a mode of goodness, it's pure. You can see things the way they are, and elevation to higher planets like Brahmaloka and Jnana and Janaloka. In passion, you experience misery, greed, and the earthly planets in terms of destination. And in ignorance, you experience foolishness, madness, illusion, and life in the hellish worlds. Now, the obstacles that are presented by these different modes. So in mode of goodness, there's no impetus to take up spiritual life. It's interesting. Even though it gives knowledge, but the impetus to take spiritual life seriously is not there. Why? Because you're too happy and satisfied to do what Krishna says. You're happy, you're satisfied, so you're really not, interested in spiritual life. We find Narad Muni. When Narad Muni was in his previous life, he was a maidservant's son and he practiced spiritual life, went to the forest. It's explained one of the obstacles Narad Muni had to overcome was mode of goodness, because he was attached to the nice environment. And that was an obstacle. So the mode of goodness can become an obstacle. It's hard to be humble. Why? Because there's a sense of superiority. So therefore, it's humility is difficult to get and hard to learn, because I already have knowledge. I know. So one can become proud. So therefore, mode of goodness also has its obstacles. In the mode of passion, you can't give up the fruits. Why? Because there's unlimited desires. So you really can't give up desires. And you become attached, often willing to sin to fulfill the desires, uncontrolled. That power of lust will overcome, will force you to engage. And thus you cannot take up bhakti with determination. You get distracted. Krishna explains that one who is influenced by this propensity to enjoy, the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. Then in ignorance, you're too deluded to recognize Krishna's instructions and too lazy to perform activities. So really, you just want to sleep. There's no, you're not interested in acting. Now, of these three, goodness, passion, and ignorance, which one do you think is the worst? Please type in the chat. Which one do you think is worse? Any others? All equally bad? That's true, but all are bad. Which one's worse? Right. So majority of that responded said ignorance. All of you said ignorance. So the one that is worse is passion. Passion is worse than ignorance. Ignorance, you're sleeping and you're really not creating more bondage in that sense. Whereas passion, if you're in a mode of passion, there is greater opportunity for you to bind yourself because of the unlimited desires. Therefore, passion is even more dangerous. It will be better for you to be in ignorance than for you to be in passion. Another example can be given. A beggar would be categorized, let's say, in the level of ignorance because he doesn't have opulence. But a rich person would be classified in mode of passion. So the rich person, not a atheistic, non-devotee rich man, has greater opportunity to exploit the material nature and engage in sinful activity due to his wealth than somebody who's a pauper. So therefore, scripture says passion has a greater binding force than ignorance. Even though ignorance will take you into lower species, but passion will definitely bind you more. When the living entity falls from the spiritual world into the material creation, the first position every living entity gets in this material world is Lord Brahma. Every single one of you were Lord Brahma once upon a time. You were the secondary creators. of this material world. Just see what position you had. And the reason you fell down was because of the quality of passion. You became attached to passion. You're creating, and also passion then leads to being proud as well. You attach to the fruits. And that mode allows you to fall, slip and slip and slip. Eventually, we are here now in this material world. Okay, now we come to the last section. Yeah, we covered. There are other categories in the 5th divisions of faith chapter. Lord Krishna is going to elaborate in chapter 17 further in terms of the modes. So there'll be additional. And then during that lesson, I'll also share some additional ones coming from Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so these are specific differences. And then we come to 19 to 27, transcending the modes of material nature. So Krishna first establishes what is the real platform, or the platform of real knowledge. And platform of real knowledge is to understand the 3 modes and how they entangle the living entity, how they influence all material activities and all living entities. And that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is transcendental to these modes. Krishna is the controller of these modes. When the Lord appears in this world, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, in the 4th chapter, Krishna explained that his activities and pastimes are divyam, transcendental. They're not influenced by the modes of material nature. He's the master of the modes, whereas everyone else is under the control of the modes of material nature. So when we understand that I'm influenced by the modes, everybody else is influenced by the modes, and only the pure devotees and Krishna, when they descend, they are not influenced. And that understanding can lead to liberation. Krishna says one becomes liberated, freedom from distress, and one also becomes free from birth, death, old age, and distress or disease. This is the result of knowing this, not having understanding of this, of these 3 modes of material nature. And the Lord also says that one can relish nectar even in this life and enjoy life on the spiritual platform. So how is one able to transcend the 3 modes? Through devotional service. Devotional activities are on the platform of Suddha Sattva. Now here also we can delve a little deeper. Bhakti can also be mixed. So we have what we call Bhakti, we have Mishra Bhakti, and we have Suddha Bhakti, Prema Bhakti, pure Bhakti, and Mishra, mixed Bhakti. There's 81 different varieties of Bhakti or devotional practices. So if somebody's practicing like chanting Hare Krishna, let's say you chant your japa, there are 81 different varieties of ways of chanting japa, according to the influence of the 3 modes of material nature. You can practice spiritual life even in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance, in the mode of goodness, and a combination of that. So we also, by understanding these varieties, we can then understand, hold on, I'm not practicing my bhakti purely. I have motives, I have conditioning, and I need to intensify it and purify it. So that way I can elevate the level of my devotion, because the Lord is only interested in pure devotion. Yes, you do get the result, but not as effective as if it's pure. So we need to understand that. But pure devotional service, Krishna consciousness, bhakti is what will allow you to transcend the 3 modes. In one purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that if you simply follow the instructions of a pure devotee, you automatically transcend the 3 modes of material nature. And that's one way we can avoid being entangled. Let's say, for example, in the chat, you can answer this question. If you drink water, do you get a reaction? If you drink water, do you get a reaction? Right. So every action will give you a reaction. Drinking water is a action. You're going to get a reaction. So everyone is going to get a reaction. So those that answered no, right, that's not the correct answer. Yes, you will get a reaction. Now, my next question. If I drink water, will I get a sinful reaction? If I drink water, will I get a sinful reaction? Okay, so we also have a mix of answers here. So if you drink water, you will get a sinful reaction. If you drink prasadam, that means water that's offered to Krishna, you don't get a sinful reaction. Prabhupada said, you can offer the water. So like, for example, you go to a picture of Krishna and you offer some water. That's one way to offer. You can also offer another way. Krishna says, Rasa apsakonteya, I'm the taste in water. So when you drink the water and you think, I am the taste in water, Krishna says, that is, I'm the taste in water. Krishna is the taste. Then you don't get the reaction. Right? So yes, we have to be grateful, but just being grateful is not a complete process to nullify reaction. Like saying thank you, Krishna, is better than not being grateful, but it's also not completely. It's like the gradations. Remember, I talked about bhakti being different gradations. So that's like the gradations. There's a process. For example, I noticed when I was at home and I would go to the temple. So I didn't obviously understand about offering, etc. So I'd go to the temple and I would notice, others would also come to the temple and they would have a box and they would put a box in front of the altar. And I would try to find out what are putting there? What's that box? Then I found out that box is, a box of sweets or chocolates they put in front. They're offering it to the Lord, so they put it in front. So they went to go buy some chocolates, and they came and they offered it to the Lord by putting the box there. Now, yes, that is better than not doing it, but it's not the best. It's not like you put a box in front. The Lord will, accept, oh, this is, you're offering it. Nope. Even though the Lord knows your intention, he will give you the corresponding result of that intention. Krishna says, as you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly. So depending on how you offer it, with greater love, if I take, for example, and it's not good to offer chocolates to the Lord. It doesn't, we don't know what the ingredients is there. It's factory made. It's not the best. Fruit is even better than that. So if you take some fruit, I can now take a box of fruit and offer it. That's one way of offering. It's not even washed. So, how the Lord is going to honor it. A better way is to wash the fruit, put in a basket and offer. But even that's not the best. You can take the fruit, you can cut it, put it in a bowl and offer it. Better than that is to take the fruit, display it nicely, take all the seeds out, take the peel out, and then offer it. Better than that is take the peels out, offer it, put it nicely in the basket. You can decorate with some flowers and offer it. Better than that is to do that and then chant Hare Krishna 3 times. And better than that is to do the same thing and chant and ring the bell of the mantras that are given to us in disciplic succession by Lord Chaitanya and Acharyas. And naturally, with that, we need to infuse our love and devotion to Krishna for giving us that mercy. Okay. Text 21. Arjuna then asks a question. In fact, 3 questions. Arjuna says, what are the symptoms of one who has transcended the modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes? So Arjuna wants to know, how can I recognize someone that has transcended? What is his symptoms and behavior? And the Lord then describes 22 to 25. Lord Krishna gives the symptoms of someone who has transcended and the behavior and dealings of someone who has transcended. And a soul who has become liberated by cultivating knowledge of the modes of nature is detached from matter and the pushing of the modes. This is in essence the conclusion of these different symptoms, right? You're not influenced, you're not pushed to and fro by these modes. You are totally detached. So briefly, Krishna first indicates that such a person is free from envy and hankering, no desire for or repulsive from manifestation of the modes, illumination, attachment, delusion. This statement implies that as long as one is in the body, one has to act neutrally, engage in devotional service so that the identification with the body will be forgotten. One does not need this body, nor need to accept the dictations of the body. Remember, the body is a foreign vehicle, a foreign object, a foreign covering. You are given the body for your imprisonment, is an imprisonment suit. Some people have an Indian imprisonment suit, others have a European prison suit, others have a Chinese imprisonment suit, some have a animal prison suit. These are all prison suits. Such someone who's transcendental or transcended the modes, they're equipoised, transcendental, detached, knowing that the modes alone are active. And how does the soul become aloof? He neither desires to enjoy the body nor desires to go out of the body. It's completely detached, neutral. So it's a very elevated platform to be to rise above the modes of material nature. Then his behavior and dealings of one transcendental to the modes, he's steady in all circumstances, whether it's praise or blame, honor, dishonor, happiness, distress, desirable, undesirable. So you can see he's dhira, very sober, deals equally with everyone and everything. He sees earth, stone, gold equally, and naturally he's accepting things favorable for bhakti. He sees friends and enemies equally disposed, and sees everything on an equal level. Social, political issues do not affect him. Knows that he has nothing to do with material existence, and knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbance. He knows that everything is temporary in this world, and does not attempt anything for his own sake, but can attempt everything for Krishna. It's interesting in terms of temporary nature of this world. There was a sage, and this sage was very hairy. He had lots of hair on his body. It's a hairy sage. And it's described that the sage lived as long as there were hairs on his body. And after many years, like yugas, one hair would fall to the ground. And then another few yugas would pass, thousands and thousands of years, and a hair would fall. And as long as he had hair on his body, he would live. So one day, the sage was at the bank of the river, and his disciples came and they said, Guru Maharaj, we like to build a hut for you, a home for you, so that you can do your bhajan. And the sage said, don't worry, my life is very temporary. So just consider, this sage he's been living for years and years and yugas, but he is still thinking, my life is temporary. Yet we live for a few years And we have this consciousness that I live eternally. I'm not going to die. And that's because of the influence of the modes. Then how to transcend the modes. So in text 26, Lord Krishna gives beautiful verse on how to transcend the modes. Let us repeat this verse. Mam chayo vyabhicharena
Amchayo Rena
bhakti yogena sevate
Bhakti Yogena Sevate
sagunan samatityaitan
Saguna Samatityatam
brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcend the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Here, the definition of Brahman is the spiritual platform. Right? Because you need to enter, or you need to become spiritual, pure, for you to enter into the kingdom of God. So if you engage in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, you transcend the mode and come to that pure devotional platform. And then in text 27, Lord Krishna makes a very important statement. And he says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I'm the basis of the impersonal Brahman. We mentioned how the Brahma Jyoti is coming from the Lord. It's his effulgence, which means Krishna, the personal form, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from his form, the Brahma Jyoti is coming. The effulgence cannot exist if Krishna is not there. That is why Krishna is saying he is the basis of Brahman. It's one of his features, the impersonal feature. Like we have a personal feature, and we can also act impersonally. If you take the word impersonal, so if you break that up, you find that the word impersonal cannot exist without the word personal. Just like the word atheist. An atheist cannot exist, or the word atheist cannot exist without theist. You need to have the word theist, then you put a and it becomes atheist. You need to have the word you have to have the word personal, then you put im and it becomes impersonal. That means, or like an example, happy and then unhappy, which means that I need to have somebody, that the existence of God needs to be there for somebody not to believe in God. The personal form needs to be there for somebody had to have an impersonal attitude. So Krishna exists, and then he's the basis of the Brahman effulgence. And people that meditate on the impersonal form of the Lord, they naturally focus on the effulgence, the light of God, and they merge into that temporarily. But the focus is really not the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. The focus is the Supreme Personality of God. And that brings us to the end of the 14th chapter, 3 modes of material nature. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any questions or comments? Anyone has? All good? Just, there was a question, I think Mother Rasastali asked about why is the man's head split? So that's the picture. His head is not split, he's unzipping himself. Right? He's unzipping himself because this is a body. It's like a jacket, and you can unwind the jacket. Right? You're living inside. You can take a jacket out. So he's unzipping himself, and the spirit soul is coming out, and then the spirit soul is going into the next body. So this is like a cloth. You can see he's got clothing here. So this is also a cloth. This body is also a cloth. We got a jacket, we got t-shirt. So we have different layers of clothing. Well, this body is also a layer of cloth that we don't want. We need to discard this layer of cloth. It's additional baggage, and we don't want additional baggage. What is the difference between the mind and consciousness? So Sharina is asking, what is the difference between the mind and the consciousness? Mind is the energy of the Lord, one of the material energies. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether is the gross elements. Then you got mind, intelligence, and false ego, 3 subtle elements. So you got the gross elements and the subtle elements. Mind is a subtle element. It's also called a subtle sense. Right? Its function is thinking and feeling, thinking and willing. We covered this in text in chapter 6. Krishna covers the mind. So it's an instrument. Consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. It's like the sun has heat and light. Similarly, the soul exhibits consciousness. So the mind is an instrument, and the soul exhibits consciousness. And that consciousness, which is coming from the soul, from the region of the heart, pervades the entire body, and also is projected through this mind instrument. The problem is the mind instrument, because it's the way it's designed, it has the faculty of accepting and rejecting. It's like a robot. It's programmed to accept and reject. And it develops a certain conditioning according to its past history. Every single action, whether it's performed with the body, mind, words, with every single sense, right? Every single action is recorded on the mind, the subtle body. And when we leave with the subtle body to the next body. So that's why we always keep all our past impressions, samskars, activities, they're all there, every single one of them. And as long as we don't purify the heart, those samskaras, those impressions will influence us. By the process of devotional service, Krishna conscious bhakti, it uproots all the samskaras, cleanses all the samskaras, purifies all the desires. It's the only process that can purify all the desires and uproot. Otherwise, it's very difficult. So Sharina, hope I clarified that clearly for you. Okay, thank you for those that are appreciating the class. How does the 3 modes of material nature deal with the devotee? So remember, we mentioned bhakti can also be influenced, Mishra bhakti, by the modes. So consider, let me give you an example. Time. Remember, everything's influenced by the 3 modes. Nothing is excluded. Every single thing within creation, every faculty, every dimension, every feature, every characteristic, everything is influenced. So time is one feature of the creation. It's influenced by 3 modes. So therefore, we get time in the mode of goodness, time in the mode of passion, and time in the mode of ignorance. And you also get spiritual time in the mode of pure goodness. So if you, as a devotee, want to practice spiritual life, scripture says, situate yourself in the mode of goodness. That will help you, propel you further into spiritual life. Better than that is situate yourself in pure goodness. That's even best. That's the best mode. So if you wake up, for example, 1 hour 36 minutes before sunrise, it's called the Brahma Muhurta period. 1 hour 36 minutes before sunrise, if you wake up during that time, or rather wake up before that time, and during that time, 1 hour 36 minutes before sunrise, called the Brahma Muhurta period, Mangal Arati time, if you practice spiritual life, do your japa during that time, it's the most powerful. The influence is most powerful. Then you find that that mode slowly transitions to the mode of goodness, morning time. That time then continues and goes to afternoon, mode of passion. And then finally in the evening, mode of ignorance. So if you practice spiritual life in the evening, that can, or chant your rounds in the evening, that can be very austere. I'm sure devotees have experienced. You chant your rounds in the evening, it's like, wow, this round is never coming to an end. Why? Because you're tired, you're falling off to sleep. So it's like, takes you 4 hours, it takes like 2 hours to chant one round. You're wondering what's happening here. You're exhausted. So the influence of the time and naturally of your activities are influencing you, but it's predominant. The influence is there in terms of time. So that's how a devotee selects appropriate time, appropriate place, appropriate circumstance, where the influence is either in a mode of goodness or Suddha-sattva, pure goodness. And that helps, accelerates. It's easier. You got greater spiritual strength backing behind you to practice. It makes it easy. So that's how one can practice. So that's the influence of the modes. And if you're not careful, remember, even a devotee is not like I'm a devotee, so therefore I'm immune. No, you're not immune. If you watch Bollywood movies, you're not immune. You're going to get impacted because why? What you're watching is influenced by the three modes of material nature, especially passion. Let me ask a question on the chat. How many of you, you're on this chat, and let's say you're parents and you have children. If you don't have children, just think of having children. Let's say you got children. How many of you will be comfortable to allow a drug addict who's also a womanizer, who's he's addicted to intoxication, to come into your lounge and associate with your children? Okay, let's ask it in this way. Who will not allow a drug addict, somebody who's breaking, having illicit affair, who's addicted to smoking, to come into, not be allowed into your house, to associate in the lounge, to associate with your children? Who will not allow such a person to come in? They tell you, please let me associate with your child, and you say no. Who will say no? If you say no, please type no in the chat room. Never allow. Definitely no. Yep. You're not going to allow such a person. Why? Because such a person is going to influence your child. Association, guna sangascha. Association is the key factor that brings up those desires. Remember I said all your desires of your past life are in you, in your heart. They're there. All they need is association. They just need somebody to associate with and trigger that, and you're going to get that desire. So we fall prey to bad habits due to association. So you're not going to allow such a person into your lounge. How many of you, and you don't need to put this in the chat room, you can just be introspective and think. How many of you have a nice one-eye guru in your lounge and you allow similar people that are addicted to drugs, that are breaking principles, that have illicit connection, that are smoking, into your lounge, through television set, through movies, right in your lounge. That means you don't allow that person to come through your door, but you allow those people to come right into your lounge via a television set. Maya has trapped you if you're doing that. She's got you right in the comfort of your home, and all the movies that are there with sex, violence, they're all coming in. They're giving you association. And that association is unfortunately going to water the material seeds that are there. And that's how even a devotee can fall prey to bad habits again. Why? Because of association. So one has to be very careful, even as devotees. We should not take these things lightly. They will influence you and can overpower you. So we should be very careful. If sleep is binding force for sleep, does it mean we shouldn't sleep? Good question. So yes, ignorance, sleep. So scripture says that because the body is working, and for the body to stay healthy, you need a minimum of 8 hours of sleep, of rest. So in devotee circles, we don't say sleep, we say resting. What I'm doing is I'm resting. How many of you, and be honest, it's not wrong, how many of you love sleeping? I'm going to put yes, me, right? That's my answer. How many of you love sleeping? Be honest. Whether it's 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, you enjoy sleeping. You love sleeping. I mean, there may be a few people that really don't, they don't like to sleep. They think it's a waste of time. But how many of you love to sleep? So I love sleeping. Yes, we all love sleeping. And you know why you love sleeping? Besides the fact that you're getting rest, getting rejuvenated, the reason you love sleeping, consider, here's the spiritual world. There's the material world. The material world means a world of exploitation. I'm projecting my consciousness through these senses on the sense objects, and I'm in the rat race of exploitation, enjoying, going through material desires. And when I sleep, I'm withdrawing that material engagement on the subtle level. So the gross activities are getting stopped when I sleep. Subtle plane is still active. So which means when I sleep, I'm closer to the spiritual reality than when I'm materially active. And when you're closer to the spiritual reality, you feel more peaceful. Now you could take that step further. If you become Krishna conscious, then even your subtle dreams, your subtle existence can become Krishna conscious. So on the subtle plane, your body is sleeping, but your astral body goes and travels. So now you go out. If you like disco, you go disco with your subtle body. You live on a subtle plane. But as a devotee, if I engage in Krishna conscious activities, then as a devotee, I go, meet a devotee, I preach, I take prasad, I have kirtan, I have Bhagavad-gita class, even in my dreams. Okay? That's a subtle plane, and I'm Krishnatizing the subtle plane. The more you Krishnatize your physical level, gross plane, the more your subtle plane will be influenced, and that way both gross and subtle I can be Krishna conscious. So if I expose myself, it also impacts my subtle level. So therefore sleep, for rejuvenating my body so I can continue engaging the next day in Krishna service, that is healthy. That does not bind. Okay, that will liberate you. So that sleep is conducive. Like you find a pujari he goes to rest and he's meditating. I can't wait to get up in the morning to serve the Lord. So he's resting is conducive for his bhakti. So in that way, sleep is conducive. Sleep, just as inertia with, you're lazy, that type of sleep, or sleep for enjoying. Which species enjoys sleep? Which animal enjoys sleep? Yes, a bear. The bear hibernates for 6 months at a time. So if you love to sleep 12 hours, you get people that sleep like 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours. It's crazy. Material nature will say, wait. This human form is not meant for sleeping. Okay, you like to sleep for 12, 13, 14 hours, half the day? No problem. I'll give you a body of a bear. You can, 6 months, you can sleep. No problem. So each species has a certain activity that's predominant in terms of activities. You explained, Mother Navina Radhika explained, you explained that we gradually fell down from the position of Brahma due to acting in the mode of passion and getting reaction. How is it possible that one can go from the prison of the material creation straight back to Godhead? What is the secret that makes the process of bhakti so wonderful that it isn't gradual? It's mercy, the mercy of the pure devotee. It is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Lord Chaitanya only comes once in the day of Brahma. After 8,640,000,000 years, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. And because Lord Chaitanya just appeared 500 years ago, therefore, the process of spiritual life in this current age is the most powerful and potent because Krishna himself has appeared 500 years ago. In the other Kali Yugas, it's not Krishna that comes. It is an expansion of Krishna, Vishnu expansion. In this age, Swayam Bhagavan appeared 5,000 years ago, and Swayam Bhagavan as Lord Chaitanya appeared 500 years ago. Therefore, the process of bhakti in this current time is the most powerful you're going to get. It's the express elevator of all express elevators. On top of that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I'm going to send my chief Senapati, my chief devotee, Srila Prabhupada, which implies that now with Prabhupada's mercy, it's even more accessible, even more powerful, even more potent. So the fact that bhakti itself is so wonderful and simple. But at this point in time, our bhakti is coming in line of Lord Chaitanya, which is even more super excellent. And then coming through Srila Prabhupada is even more excellent. The example is given of a mango. Mango is very juicy. It's sweet. Doesn't matter where you bite it, it's sweet. But when a parrot bites on it, pecks on it, but nature's arrangement, nature's mystical, magical potency, when the parrot bites on it, that mango becomes even sweeter. So like that, it's explained Srimad Bhagavatam is sweet. When it's given through the lips of the parrot Sukha, it becomes even sweeter. When it's given by Srila Prabhupada, it becomes even sweeter. So like that, the process of bhakti is much more, the sweetness is amplified, the mercy is amplified. It's inconceivable. So that is how we can actually go back. We have great hope with the shelter of pure devotees and the great acharyas in the line of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, that brings us to the end of all the questions. Thank you very much for your time and patience. All yours, Mukund.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the class. And thank you, everybody, for engaging with Prabhu as well. I would just like to end the program with the closing prayers. You could just put your hands together. Thank you. Om Om Dyo Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithvi Shanti Apa Shanti Oshadaya Shanti Vanaswataya Shanti Vishvedeva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shanti Deva Shanti Shama Shanti Devi Hari Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bolo Shri Krishna Kanaya Lal Ki Jai, Shri Gau Mata Ki Jai. Thank you all for joining us for tonight's class. We will see you again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Prabhu will be covering chapter 15. We haven't yet uploaded the latest classes, but it will be done soon. That's the drive, the link. You can just message me on that number, so I can send you that link as well. I'll put you on the WhatsApp group. This is the details for if you would like to do some charity in this Purushottam month to feed the needy, where Madran Food for Life is feeding 700 meals on weekdays. So you can sponsor the meal at 8 Rand a plate. That is the banking details at the bottom, the Madran net bank account details. Do good things and good things will happen to you. You can just take a snapshot of that. And then if you would like to contribute to the Goshala or like to visit also, you can make bookings with myself. That is my number and the banking details is there. And that's it. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. From everyone here at Govinda's Goshala, Hare Krishna and Namaste, and see you tomorrow.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mukund. Was very nice.
Thank you, Kaka.
Okay. Thank you. All the best, right? See you tomorrow again.